Hello, my lovely rose garden, and welcome to my current hyperfixation. I'm Avalon Roselin, indie author and not quite former brony. Given that one of the main reasons why my passion for My Little Pony has been reignited is the infection AUs that got popular, well, it was only a matter of time until I ended up creating one. In my last video, I asked people to comment which characters they wanted to see next, and when T in a Top Hat said Christopher from Alice, I knew what I had to do. While I am talking about these characters being transplanted into the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic universe, please be warned that I am still staying true to the vibes, at least, of their canon work, so there may be a few details that are spoiler adjacent. That said, if you listen to this setup and think it sounds awesome, you should check out the book the characters come from. There's a link to my website below where you can learn more. This video is also going to be more story-heavy than the last one for Like Falling Stars, which was more about designing my characters as ponies. I hope you'll stick around to hear the story. Now on to the horror show. I agreed with T in a Top Hat's suggestion that Christopher be a unicorn with something kind of wonky about his horn. In this case, just a very small one that's mostly covered by his mane, practically invisible if viewed from the wrong angle. As in canon, his colors are a bit desaturated due to stress. Because my husband is a fan of the traditional unicorn with a lion-like tail and cloven hooves, I decided to give him that as well for a more classical fairy tale look. In my reinterpretation of My Little Pony, ponies only get names after they earn their cutie marks, and use placeholder names until then. As you can see here, Christopher Pony has a cutie mark, and therefore a name, Cherished Memories. He also goes by Cherished, though he prefers only close friends call him that. Not that a certain belligerent Pegasus follows those wishes, but we'll get to him later. Cherished Memories grew up in an orphanage. To sum it up in a word, it was miserable. So many of his friends left him behind, and he always missed them, even while trying to be happy for them. As he got older and still didn't have his cutie mark, he was seen as basically unadoptable and instead resigned himself to spending his entire life in the orphanage. Even when he became an adult, he didn't leave, preferring to help the young fillies and colts find their own families. It was this that led to him gaining his cutie mark. Although he knew he would eventually have to say goodbye to his loved ones, he chose to focus on his joy for them rather than his sorrow for himself, and to always cherish the memories he'd made with the foals that were in his care. Next up, we have our belligerent Pegasus, Guardwing, aka Morgan from Alice. Because of his large size, Guardwing was never a very good flyer. He can fly, but he isn't very fast or agile in the air. He is strong and can fly things short distances, but outside of that, he doesn't usually like to go airborne. Instead, he mainly uses his wings as a kind of shield, hence his name. In this art, he has a few missing feathers due to the way he uses his wings in combat, and I added an injury to his leg. You might be worried about how long he'll last in an infection AU with that kind of fighting style and visible injuries. Keep worrying. Guardwing has made no secret of his crush on Cherished Memories, even though Cherish has been very adamant that he is not interested in finding a special sum pony right now. Fun fact, these two are actually childhood friends and did have mutual crushes on each other as colts. Guardwing was adopted from the same orphanage that Cherished Memories grew up in and works at now. They didn't stay in touch after Guardwing's adoption, but because they do have this childhood connection, Guardwing assumes that Cherished Memories must still have those same feelings. And he might have if Guardwing hadn't been so pushy about it. Now Guardwing views himself as Cherish's knight in shining armor, which can be useful but also distracting and frustrating when Cherished Memories is trying to get things done that require more stealth or caution. The last key player in this story is a mysterious Colt that resembles one Cherished Memories was particularly close to. In fact, he may be the very same Colt. It's not clear. It would be clearer if he would show Cherish his cutie mark, because the Colt from the orphanage did have a cutie mark before he was adopted, but for some reason this Colt always finds a way to hide his mark. There's clearly something there, but Cherished can never get a good look at it. This mysterious Colt is the catalyst for the plot of the whole story, so let's get to that. When Cherished Memories opened the letter, he had no idea it was going to change his life. He was used to getting a few letters here and there from happily adopted foals thanking him for his care, all of which he kept in his office. But he had never received an invitation to a quinceañera before. Typically, foals without cutie marks were less likely to get adopted, which was why his orphanage worked with the Cutie Mark Crusader Foundation to help foals find their talents. He could hardly remember when the last blank flank had been adopted. Well, he'd gotten his own mark pretty late in life, and clearly he had left enough of an impression on this young pony for them to want him at their celebration. His heart warmed with the thought of all the precious memories that they must share, and wanted to see how they were getting on now, though it bothered him that he couldn't recall the pony in question, especially since the picture included was clearly Checkmate, a colt who had been adopted shortly after getting his mark a year ago for winning first place in a chess tournament. After taking care of some paperwork and getting a team of foal sitters together to cover for him, Cherished Memories took the next train to Wonderland. On the train, he met with Guardwing, who excitedly informed him that he too was on his way to Wonderland, though responding to a report of a strange disturbance there. Guardwing vowed to see Cherish safely to his destination, despite Cherish's polite protests that he would be fine on his own. He was attending a foal's party, after all. How dangerous could it be? Guardwing spent so much time talking to Cherish that neither of them noticed the train slowly emptying, until by the time they reached Wonderland, they were the only two left. The train sped off as soon as they disembarked, the two of them alone at the platform of the dreary town. Or so they thought. Time for some monster designs. Now that I think of it, this is less an infection AU and more of a haunting AU, but it fits the vibe. Alice was very much inspired by Silent Hill, and that carries over into this AU. I wanted the monster designs here to still have the silhouettes of ponies, so that if they were viewed through low light or fog, both of which dominate Wonderland, they might be a little off-putting but not outright alarming. Then they get close, and yikes. If you were disappointed by only 3 Alice characters getting pony designs earlier, I hope seeing the rest of the cast as monsters will make up for it. First up, Glimmeret. Beautiful unicorn from a distance, but get closer and whoops, the head is not where you originally thought it would be. This creature is a fusion of a spider and scorpion that can twist her segmented tail to look like a unicorn, even letting thick strands of webbing fall from her spinneret to resemble a mane and better sell the illusion. Once her unsuspecting prey gets too close, a quick flick from the venomous barb will paralyze them so she can wrap them up and eat them. If that doesn't work, she can also hide in a dark area to bite with mandibles or stab with her sharp legs. Thankfully, Glimmeret isn't particularly fast and prefers her victims to come to her or stray past without realizing. She doesn't chase down her prey. If a pony realizes that they are not talking to a unicorn in time to avoid the swipe from the barb, they can typically escape by running, since Glimmeret will not pursue further than a few yards once the element of surprise is lost. Glimmeret represents Terceira from Alice, and was probably the character that I had the hardest time coming up with a monster design for. If I was going to design her to be a pony directly, she would be a gorgeous, glamorous unicorn, like a more selfish and vain version of Rarity. In Alice, Terceira is very much concerned about her looks and would hate for anyone to think of her as ugly, even going as far as to cover her face to hide the imperfections. I kind of ran with that idea when creating Glimmeret as a monster that literally hides its real face and pretends to be a pretty unicorn. Once I made the initial silhouette, I realized that a spider would be a good match, since many spiders hide or set traps and then scoop up their prey rather than chasing them down, which Terceira simply would not do. When it comes to running down hapless prey, that's better left to the next monster, Red Rot. This design, representing Prima, is the one that I am the most proud of, even if the idea is probably the least original. In Alice, Prima is Terceira's loving wife, the local bartender, and also probably the character who most enjoys violence. I think she's a lot of fun, personally. Red Rot's design is most influenced by typical infection/zombie-style media, having the appearance of a skinless horse with exposed-ish skull. Red is Prima's main color, just as green is Terceira's, so I tried to also add a little of each other's colors in their highlights. This is why Glimmeret has red eyes, and the highlights on Red Rot are done with green. Sweet Celestia, they're so married. I wanted Red Rot to be the oh shit monster. This is the one that has the raw physical strength, can run ponies down, and will leave them a bloody pulp if she catches them. She doesn't waste a lot of time with psychological tricks, and by the time a pony is close enough to realize she isn't one, it's too late. Maybe she used to be a Pegasus. Maybe her skin has just been torn away to leave wing-like appendages hanging at her side. Who knows? She is, however, not the one that gave Guardwing that injury. That would be Ditsy Daze, the worst thing I've ever created, in more ways than one. Ditsy Daze represents Mary and Joseph from Alice, who are basically the only characters that are just straight up monsters all the time, forever. The other characters at least attempt normalcy when Christopher first meets them, but Mary and Joseph are insufferable from the first page they appear on and never stop sucking. Because they never make separate appearances and their saccharine disposition is an act anyway, I decided to fuse their pony AU monsters into one horrifying nightmare. Again, at a distance, they look like two ponies standing back to back, and would stand very still to not give away their true nature when they awkwardly move sideways, for a pony. Christopher particularly hates Mary and Joseph, so I gave them attributes from another thing he hates, rats. I also wanted to put another mouth where it feasibly should not go. Side note, I have never actually drawn rodent features before, and especially not like this, so that was kind of fun. As you can see, Ditsy Daze has no eyes, either on its main body or its puppet heads, so it hunts based on sound and smell. While those sharp teeth can leave a nasty mark, it is the easiest of the three monsters shown to escape from. If Guardwing wouldn't have been so caught up in his bravado and showing off for Cherished, he probably would have escaped the encounter with Ditsy Daze unscathed. Having been harried from place to place by Wonderland's monsters, Cherished Memories and Guardwing at last come face to face with the pony they're really there to meet. The mysterious Colt that they've been minding up to this point is but a spell cast by a corrupted, nameless alicorn that wishes to recreate a perfect foalhood, twisting ponies' bodies and minds in order to do it. Cherish is the final piece of the puzzle that it needs to play the role of caretaker. Guardwing is nothing more than an unlucky casualty that will become a new guardian of Wonderland like the other monsters. Stressed and scared beyond rational thought by his experiences, Cherish considers giving in and letting the alicorn wipe his memories. At least then he won't have to be afraid anymore. And that's all I've got for this video. How do you think the story would end? Can you guess based on how Alice ends? Have you read Alice? You can. My books are available anywhere books are sold online, so go check them out, especially since Alice is a perfect book for spooky season. Links are in the description. Please leave a like and comment before you go, and maybe consider subscribing. I make videos about books I read, write, and stories in general. Oh, and happy Halloween! Thank you so much for watching, and a special thank you to my patrons. If you'd like to see your name here or in the description below, please consider joining my Patreon. Your support means so much to me and allows me to continue making content. If you want to support my content in different ways, consider buying my books, donating on Ko-fi, subscribing to the channel, or even just giving this video a like and comment. Any and everything is appreciated so much. Keep growing till next time, Rose Garden!